Thank you. Okay, well, everyone, welcome to the Future of Sustainable Live Events Blue Room, Blue Stage session of the Hollywood Digital Climate Summit. I want to thank everyone for their generous patience and spirit of collaboration that goes into a live digital event. We have been together for 25 minutes, ready to be on stage with you, and we've been enjoying each other's company, and now we get to be with you live. So that's part of the fun, the challenges we're all in. So I wanted to just ask you all, as our guests, as our audience, that I'm going to ask two questions throughout the course of our. I think we're able to extend this out, so I think we'll be together until about 5:15, right before the live show tonight. So I have two audience questions that you can listen for. I'm going to give you the first one in a moment, and you're going to be able to comment in either Facebook or Twitch in the comment section. Your questions, and we'll be able to hear them and bring them into they're not your questions, pardon me, your comments, and we'll be able to bring them into our conversation. So my name's Jen Regan. I am the Vice President of Sustainability with a company called PACT Partners. We build movements for change, for climate positive solution, for veganism, for things that make the world a better place. I'm going to give you an intro that's a little bit more the way I want my panelists to introduce them in a second. But what I wanted to tell you is that we have a very short time together to cover really near and dear to our heart topic, which is sustainability and live events. And so we've curated a conversation. I'm a practitioner, and Brett's a practitioner, Lucy's a practitioner, Blake's a practitioner. We are people who think at a systems level about how our business is run from a sustainability perspective, and then we actually execute on that at the event live. So we have different experiences. Brett has both live music and sports experience. Lucy has both live music and sports experience, but I'm going to really put Brett in the sports camp and Lucy in the music camp. And then Blake has this incredible connection to us, to what you're here for, the production audience. And so he captures live content in a production environment. So although we are very dynamic individuals who are way more than those buckets, I've asked us all to kind of fill that role and think from that perspective for our conversation today. And we have three goals as a group. I've roped my panelists into these goals, which is one, we want to share with you the context and lens through which we look at sustainability, so you can understand another perspective to look at and how we perceive it from a live event perspective. Two, we want to give you specific examples of tools and practices we take to address key priority environmental topics in our day-to-day work. And three, we want to inspire you to identify actions you can take. So at the end of our session, you're going to have an opportunity to declare an inspired action that you're inspired to take after our session, and use the hashtag create a green culture. So if at any time you're inspired to take action and you want to declare, I'm inspired to create, and then use the hashtag create a green culture. So I will prompt you guys as an audience about that at the end. But I wanted my panelists to start out with a quick personal intro, because I know we have a lot of incredible young professionals who are at the start of their careers in entertainment and Hollywood, and who might be interested to know how we personally got to where we are and got to caring about what we did. So I'm going to give an example of what the intro might look like. I've asked them each to do 1 minute. I'm going to check the time because you can tell I like to talk. So I've asked everyone to cover things. So my name's Jen Regan. My title, as I said, Vice President of Sustainability for PACT Partners. My journey to being a sustainability professional. I am a survivor of domestic violence at a very young age. And when I came out of that experience, I knew I never wanted anyone to experience injustice, because I had a taste of what it might be like myself. And so I found myself at the age of 11 and age of 12, gravitating towards groups that were working on justice issues. And I first got introduced to a group of Latin American students at my middle school and high school who were so passionate about awareness about what's happening at the Amazon. And that made me aware of all of these indigenous rights issues around land use. And I, as someone who had experienced my own sense of injustice, I never wanted to see injustice anywhere. So it started me on immediately through my academic experience, studying sustainability and trying to understand these different systems and where you can have the most power. I landed on corporate America. We have so much power and influence here. And I was raised in an entertainment background. So a theater kid, live events, growing up working in live events, it was a natural fit. I became the first environmental employee at a big company called AEG. I got to build out their AEG One Earth environmental program and make them the first to record their footprint and do a sustainability report. I took that exciting early industry leading adoption and brought it to everywhere else I've worked since then. And now I'm with PACT Partners, a peer group of activist leaning strategists who are helping organizations do the best they can. So that's how I got to where I am. I'm passionate about justice. and I am passionate about sustainability. So I told my team I didn't know what I was going to say. So that's what I said. Who wants to go next? I think we'll go ahead and go with Blake first, I think, if that's cool. Blake, you ready for it?
Definitely. Yeah,
Awesome.
no, it's going to be hard to follow you up, but I'm so grateful to be able to speak with all of you today. My name is Blake Levy. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the founder and producer at Camp Presents. We're a sustainable media company where we produce cinematic live broadcasts and original content for entertainment and politics. I got to where I am quite simply by not asking for permission nor following the rules and just failing really, really well, and being able to surround myself with peers that have constantly been able to push me in a positive direction to make a difference. And I think that in being in Hollywood and being able to work on live broadcasts, we have an opportunity to use the spotlight and can point it in the right direction. And I think that doing this and talking about sustainability is something that affects everyone, no matter where you are. And if we can play a role for others to use us as an example, for them to lead the way, then we can make a difference by each doing our part. And so I'm really excited to be here and talk with all of you.
Thank you so much. And now if we can hear about Lucy.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. Great to be here. So I currently am the director of sustainability for Live Nation venues. We've got about 45 or so, small to large amphitheaters across the country. And I lead our sustainability strategy for those concert venues. And my career in this started in a really kind of crazy way. I landed a spot in 2004. There was an organization called Headcount, which you guys might be aware of. Headcount focuses on getting youth out to vote. And that was their first year in 2004. And I got a spot on the Dave Matthews Band tour that summer, registering voters for that election year. And that was kind of my first entry way to see kind of what happens when you combine music with activism. And it was, of course, the best summer of my life. And thought it was just sort of a one and done deal. Thought I was going to go to law school and study human rights. And the following summer, there was an opportunity to go back out on tour and help the band with a variety of social and environmental initiatives that they were interested in. And so that turned into several years out on the road, everything from working with Ben & Jerry's and the Lick Global Warming campaign, which Dave Matthews Band had his own Ben & Jerry's flavor, you guys might remember. So really sort of the early days was focused on, how the fan could take action when they came to a show. And then that kind of evolved into the touring production. Like, what can we actually do from a touring side to make the tour a little bit more sustainable? And so supported them out on the road with some of those efforts. And again, that sort of turned into my life's passion and career, sitting at this sort of intersection between, music and live events and environmental action, and the kind of business and corporate side. And that kind of trifecta is such a powerful combination. And so I got the opportunity to take this role at Live Nation 4 years ago and help build out the sustainability program for the concert venues that I'd been touring in for years. And now what we get to do is really make these practices just how we run our venues, right? So no matter what artist comes in, we can say, hey, we're already composting. We already have water refill stations. So all these things that artists were asking before, we now get to say, hey, that's just how we run our events. So it's been an exciting career. I feel grateful every day that I'm in it, and just feel happy to be part of this conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy. We're lucky to have you here. And then Brett, can you give us your little 1-2 punch?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Brett Blumberg, the Director of Sustainable Events and Analytics at the Green Sports Alliance. Similar to Lucy, and I guess a lot of people in this industry, it's not a single track to get into it. I started off as an environmental engineering student at CU Boulder, and just by a stroke of luck, received a 1-week internship with ESPN after my freshman year, I guess, to green up their SB's award show. This was just a 1-week internship that I thought was an incredibly fun experience. Ended up, because I was in Colorado, helping them out at the Winter X Games in Aspen, and just it was just fun as a college student to get out there and engage with fans and get dirty in the waste stream. But it was never in my vision to turn that into a profession. So I ended up graduating. Got a remediation engineering job in Los Angeles, and it's just what I was targeting. I was fascinated with cleaning up the environment and cleaning up hazardous waste sites, and realized that I hated it. It was awful. It was soul crushing, really, to be in the industrialized, really contaminated part of Los Angeles and my Southern California home, and seeing that side of it and what happens to industry when it's too late, when education is forgotten, and inspiration around our planet. So I actually ended up quitting my job shortly after, and I just volunteered at 3 activism organizations in Orange County, around permaculture and organic farming and other environmental organizations. And I realized how much fun it was to be at ESPN and engage with people and really meet them where they were with the passion and just the fun and the happiness at these events. So I decided to go back to school, got my MBA, and I ended up co-founding an organization in San Diego, actually a division within an organization called Kilowatt One. And I spent the last 3 years creating music festivals and sporting events across North America, and including the ESPYs, including the event that I started at, which was a really great experience. And actually just this year, I joined the Green Sports Alliance. And just as an organization, we leverage the power of sports and athletes to create positive change and environmental impact in the communities across the world using the power of sports. My position in particular is to design and scale external fan-facing campaigns. Really, over the past decade, the Green Sports Alliance is focused on industry operations and advancement of sustainability. And I'm really excited for this next era, and happy to join this conversation.
Awesome. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And Blake, thank you for grounding us in the topic of the day, which is production, right? Because the three of us, meaning Brett, Lucy, and I, are like out there, way out there on the live event ledge. So the fact that you're so used to capturing our live events and being the translator to this audience is exactly why we needed you here, to keep us grounded. So thank you. Now, I will say that we are going to probably have to adjust our timing to end around the original end time, which will make our panel really short. What's great about your intros is you both kind of gave a little context into your approach to sustainability. So I'm going to dive into some specifics actually with you guys, if that's cool. But first, I promised our audience a question. So audience, to you as a fan, what element of sustainability are you most concerned about at an event? So, we're reading your comments from Twitch and Facebook. It'd be helpful to know if you're most interested in energy and climate, transportation, zero waste. Think of the broader categories. If there's something specific, that's great. We're going to continue having our conversation, but the producers are going to share some of your comments with us so we can lean more into those topics as we get that input in. So go ahead and start answering. To you as a fan, what element of sustainability are you most concerned about at an event? So, we heard what I heard from Lucy, and what I know, because Lucy and Brett and I've had a chance to work together in many contexts, is really so much of our work over the last few years has been about creating a baseline of operations, a standard. If you come to us, you know how to recycle. We're going to have energy efficient technology, blah, 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 blah. I'm literally saying blah on a public audience because that's the standard. But our conversation today is about the future of live events. And we would be remiss not to acknowledge that all day long, the panels that came before us did a great job of talking about how productions are adapting to COVID. So we're taking advantage of the fact that we're a future conversation to skip over the transition period that we're currently in and to go right into what should we be planning for to come back to when we're all coming back to the future of live events. So I want to say there were some great things in the earlier panels today about precautions, about masks, about distancing, about different ways that productions and live events will adapt in the immediate. There's a lot of great things coming out in the news. I wanted to give our panelists just a quick second. Is there anything that you're hearing right now about the transition of live events, the transition time around COVID that you think is worth elevating as a part of the context before we jump into the future conversation? So I know that MLB is looking at coming back without audiences. I know that there's, Tyler Perry Studios is looking at having people come in and live in quarantine together. So just wondering, I don't know, Blake, Brett, anyone have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I can jump in here. I think first of all, it's all about safety at first, and even we're talking about fans, which is imperative, but we need to first think about the athletes as well. And I know that MLB is having significant conversations around the health and safety standards, and I think it's going to require us to, from an environmental perspective, to understand the significance behind the safety of our athletes and fans, of course, without losing the momentum of our movement. And I just want to add one thing that I read from Tom Zaki from TerraCycle this week. I'm not sure if a lot of people read it in Green Biz, but basically he compared the situation right now with people asking about reusable systems or reusable cups or serviceware, and he brought up the dentist, and it's like we're all very comfortable with the dentist putting tools in our mouths that were just used by somebody a couple minutes prior because we trust their sanitation standards. And I think that really is where we need to head. And I think that's the conversations that are currently happening. More standardization, more whether it's certification or verification that procedures are actually followed, and that we actually are opening up our venues for with safety in mind. I think that without going into too much more detail due to time, I'll pass it off to the rest of the team.
Thanks, Blake. Anything you want to jump in and add in there?
Definitely. I mean, I think that there's been a lot of progress that's been made over the last several years. And I think that as we return to work, I think it's about how to look forward to the future, not just, the next 6 months and how do we become operational. But, the climate problem is going to be the greatest challenge we face. And I think we've seen over the last, 2 months on the impact that humans have on the environment. There's cleaner airs. And so it's kind of this balance of how do we reopen and how do we make sure that we can get all of our systems going, but also how can we really look to the future and not lose momentum and really be thinking outside of the box and take this time to reevaluate everything from the ground floor up as we rebuild to say, how can we build this better? Not just for a safety in a COVID environment, but for an environmental environment, an environment that's inclusive of everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think that's so huge, an environment that's inclusive of everybody. And to me, that also means every concern level, every level of safety, and it's inclusive of different levels of safety that everyone might feel. And I think it goes right back to what Brett said about trust, right? How to establish trust in our sanitation practices. And similarly speaking, I think that goes back to sustainability, trust in our sustainable practices. I think there's a lot of fans who actually assume that their recycling is happening at every stadium at this point. There's some level of trust there, which might be slightly misplaced because the baseline isn't to have recycling everywhere. But there are these patterns, there are these habits, there's these behaviors that we want to see, that we know the audience wants to see, and it's our responsibility to make sure it's something that can be delivered. So with that said, because of time, Lucy, I'm going to skip you on that one. We're going to move right on to the next question. Thanks for being so patient and giving in terms of time and rolling with the punches once again. So the next question really is, what specific tools and practices do you want to see from a sustainability be the baseline of the future? So, and when I say the baseline of the future, it's acknowledging that there are some things, for example, I just pointed out recycling, right, which has inconsistent infrastructure across the country in the United States, that we would like to see. What are the top priority sustainability initiatives that you are preparing the organizations you advise, that you're preparing people to be prepared for, to come back with? And where is your focus going right now? And so actually, if I can kick that over to you first, Lucy, since I skipped you on the last one, it would be great.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think we see a lot of businesses aligning their goals to recommendations that are coming from the science community and from the United Nations, right? And I think what we're seeing more and more in our industry, and I'm proud to say that Live Nation's done this, is establishing goals that are not sort of made in a vacuum, but really tied to sort of global goals, right? So that as we're tackling these things, we know that we're contributing to things that impact all of us, right? Climate action. And so for us at Live Nation, last year we launched Green Nation. And it's a global coalition of Live Nation venues and festivals that came together and basically prioritized a set of goals that we weighed against the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and basically said, here's our vision, here are our priorities. And, if, all Live Nation venues and events are going to kind of strive to meet these goals. And it's everything from, first and foremost, of course, climate change and climate action. So, trying to reduce our emissions 50%, which is, direct recommendation from the IPCC report that came out, and focusing on waste and single-use plastics. It's super important to us, our artists, fans that come to our events. So have been, trying to innovate in that area and see, how we can do alternatives to plastics, to sort of our impact on the local community, and how can we, work to support the local people and organizations that kind of make these events what they are. So, so from a priority perspective, that's kind of what we're really focused on. And I don't know if we're going to get to this in another question, but just in terms of like approach, something that I learned, I think all of us I'm type A, I'll speak for myself. So like, we want to do everything all the time, right? And I think a lot of us that are in this movement maybe get caught in that trap, is there's so much to do and we want to do it all. And, I think one approach that's really helped me is, what can you control first and foremost, and start there. And then what do you influence? And I think, in our industry, both in live music and in sports, we have the advantage of having this incredible platform and can influence, to a great degree. But, what you can control first, I think is a great place to start. So, that answer your question?
Yes, it does. No, fantastic. It's a great start point, and I'm taking notes because I want to come back to it. And that in that same level, taking it over, Brett, and then I want Blake to kind of have you tie us back to the production side. Brett, can you jump in and say, what priorities are you leaning into to set a new baseline for the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one we're thinking about every day, because the world, even though we're all stuck at home, it's shifting so quickly from an industry standpoint. And I think two main topics here. The first one really, I think, is easily understood to this audience, which is full customization of storytelling, storytelling that will actually create tangible solutions and impact human lives. And as everybody knows, each sporting event, it has its own fingerprint. Each sport has its own culture. Each city has its own geography and geographical issues, social issues, and different sponsors involved. So while operations may remain consistent in operational strategies based on infrastructure, we need to be able to relate with the audiences and inspire and create tangible solutions for them based on who they are and who we're talking to. Number two, and touching on Lucy's comments on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, it's around transparent data systems. And we are heading in a direction where we need to start collecting more data than we think that we need, not just having a myopic view of recycling percentages anymore, but creating context around it. And two quick examples from our work at the college football national championship game in January. We weren't just tracking the recycling weight, but taking that to its carbon greenhouse gas equivalencies to boil everything down to a single impactful carbon metric. And at the ESPYs this past year, it wasn't just about the recycling weight, it was about the CRV value that we generated and donated to the Hollywood beautification team. So it's more about the story and about the metrics that you can use to help tell your story. And it's not just about the good data either. It's really about the bad data. Even the best, most sustainable events that you can imagine, there's still plenty of opportunities for improvement right now. And we need to be able to empower our event organizers to really track and report their impacts through education, standardization. Lucy and I actually had a conversation probably about a year ago now, I think, around the UN SDGs, and it's awesome to hear that they've taken action on them. And just being able to set these targets to these global goals and not just create them in a vacuum is essential for our movement. So the Green Sports Alliance as an organization is working towards bringing this to life, and we hope to have more information for our network very soon.
Thank you so much. And Blake, before I give you a chance to jump in, I know you're ready to answer that specific question, but I'm actually going to change the question on you a little bit. So I'm going to I'm going to recap for a second, because one of the things, these themes that I'm hearing, Lucy and Brett, and is really about frameworks, right? And so, as Live Nation being, I know from my own experience at AEG, that it's a portfolio company with a portfolio of venues and companies in different cities. Green Sports Alliance is a trade association, ultimately, of multiple people from across. So the three of us really come from that lens of seeing it across a portfolio where maybe some of the challenges we're facing are similar, right? The challenges, and I just want to state this because, Blake, I'm saying this before you, so you can dive in specifically in how this might be slightly different, but I think it's the same. In our live entertainment space, we have a similar challenges. We have constantly changing staff, right? Seasonal staff. We have people who we don't control coming in to use the space that is ours to control, but it's ultimately rented out or used by other entities, and we're just there to be, creating that vessel. So, we have transient people, both workers, seasonal people. We have fans. We have a lot of different audiences that come through that we have very short time frames to deliver information to, and we have to be able to scale up and scale down very quickly. So we have limited space and limited time to execute on strategies that might normally at another environment be possible, like zero waste. Zero waste might be more complicated when you're scaling up and down really quickly. So that's something that I think is unique to, those are qualities and challenges that are unique to live events. And so Blake, you have such a unique perspective because you're capturing live event content from different settings, from political junkets to live award shows. So when you are thinking about sustainability in the future baseline, which was the question you were prepared to answer, knowing that we're thinking about it from the perspective of the venue or the groups that are trying to be, where does your brain go? Do you go to the same place as us? Or are you going slightly different? And if you can address that too.
Yeah, what Brett just said, I think really encapsulates it. That story defines what it means. You have to make it relatable. I think that in all of what we do, it's about how to connect that story, how to connect that performer or the athlete on the stage or the field to the audience at home and get them invested. And I think you can use that power of storytelling to apply it when it comes to sustainability. And to kind of dive into, I think, the logistics and operations or the nuts and bolts that kind of is, I think, similar across all of our, kind of different arenas, is the fact that what I want to kind of see as the approach moving forward is that as we all treat safety as a number one, that is just something that is inherent when you walk into an arena or you walk onto a set, that we should also look at the environment in that same way, that we should treat the environment as if it is safety, because for the future of our businesses, it will be. And if we kind of come at it from that approach, where, it's from day one, that's just kind of ingrained into how we build a show or how we put on an event, then it'll make the process much easier than coming in at the end of the road and saying, well, how can we make this greener? Or how can we make this better? But rather, hey, we're going to go do this. Here's what we've got. And right now is a perfect time because we all have that reset. Everything has stopped. And so as we start to retick up again, we can then kind of integrate new best practices and ideas. And then I think the next step to that is awareness. By us being more aware, then we can take those actions. But I think that there's also a responsibility to work together across industries, from live event venues to productions, whether they're live or not live, to really figure out what are the best ways in which we can each share ideas to move the needle forward. And I think that for a lot of us, it comes down to kind of the classic cycle of reduce, reuse, recycle. And we think backwards. We go from recycle to reuse to reduce. But we've got an amazing production designer who we work with, and she looks at it as, hey, what can we build from what we already have? And that's just a beautiful way of looking at it that I think can help even move the needle even forward more by reducing the initial impact. And so that when we get to recycling, we've already kind of thought through some of the larger areas where we can have an impact.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Blake. And so there's a theme here that we're going to get back to about collaboration and the areas that we really could benefit from collaborating. And so I know that Lucy and Brett actually in their own line of work had already started collaborating on something, so that we could talk about that a little bit here. Collaborating at least intellectually and sharing theories. I don't want to make any declarations on behalf of organizations in advance before we can do anything like that. That's not the direction I'm going with that. But what I wanted to pause and kind of give us a chance to, can we speak about the three different main groups of people we're dealing with? We're dealing with crew, we're dealing with fans, and we're dealing with talent. And I think those are three buckets that we could all agree are pretty steady buckets. I was wondering if you could talk about particular environmental initiatives that you focus on or ways that you've been trying to motivate people in those three camps? So I'm jumping around. I'm going to take us back to our collaboration question after this one. But if we could dive into what it looks like from a live event perspective and some of the initiatives that you've seen or that you're trying to galvanize around sustainability for those three. So crew, talent, and fans. Lucy, how about you? Do you mind going back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's more fun than going to a concert, right? And so we get to kind of tap into that excitement and passion when people are at the event. I'm going to start with crew because to me, I feel like our program wouldn't exist without the incredible staff that work at our venues. And, you know, if you think about it, if they're excited about what we're doing, they're going to kind of get fans excited about it. So we've been focused on a lot of really great programs to just sort of enable our venue staff to kind of build community around sustainability. And what's happened is I feel like it's really become a sense of pride. You know, you think about these large amphitheaters, everyone can remember their first show at their first venue. So there's already kind of that sense of pride. And now it's like the venue can be also a leader in the community around sustainability and the environment. And our best ideas have come from venue staff who live and breathe these venues and these shows. And so I'll be successful if I just provide tools and then get out of the way because the best ideas come from them. Our entire, you know, donation program started with a member of one of our venues who, you know, was charged with helping clean up the lawns at the end of the night and noticed that there were a lot of blankets left over, you know, especially after a rainy day, and took it upon herself to took the blankets home, washed them, and dried them, and now, you know, donates them. And that idea spread to our other venues across the country. So I feel like where we're really lucky in this network of venues that we've got, you know, we can easily share best practices quickly. And ideas like that get seeded from these employees sort of on the front line of this. And then that inspires someone else to take action. So that's kind of actually how we've seen a lot of these programs scale, is simply through planting that seed and showing what can be done and how, and then other people take that up. So anyway, that's just sort of, you know, one example. And the way to do it is, again, you start with very simply education, awareness. You make it personal, you make it relevant. A lot of the people that work at our venues have worked there for 30 years and their family works there, right? And so when you can start to sort of have them make the connection of, you know, again, the sense of pride in the venue and the community. They want their backyards to be healthy, thriving, you know, communities for the next generations of their family. And so I think that really motivates them. That intrinsic motivation is, to me, that's where, you know, you have long-term systemic change if it's intrinsically motivated. So again, our goal is just to kind of help provide the tools and plant those seeds. And then when they pick up on it, magic happens.
Awesome. So thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and kind of stick with crew because we dived into crew, and I want to just reverberate what you said. Provide them the tools, right? The tools are ultimately the seeds, and let them grow and let them bloom. So provide them the tools and they will run with it. Make it intrinsic and connect to their sense of pride. Thank you for that, Lucy. So Blake, we'll go ahead and let you go first. So just to switch it up a little bit. So
Definitely.
yeah, if you could dive into the crew piece.
Yeah, no, I mean, for us, it's all about crew. You know, a lot of the times the audience, they're watching from home. And the way that we've kind of organized and structured our company at Camp is not just to be another media company that does this, but rather from the start of how we've been established to put the environment forward. And that means to make it so that our crew kind of understands how we're structured and what we're doing. And, you know, I think as Lucy really said, it is just about kind of giving them and everyone we work with kind of the overview of what are we trying to achieve here and how can we provide the best tools and resources available. And I've been constantly amazed by everyone kind of basically evolving what has already happened. And I think that for me, what it's about is just how can we continue to move this ball forward in coming up with new ideas and bringing in outside people who maybe, you know, traditionally don't know how we do things is oftentimes the greatest way to get a new idea, because it's this out of the box thinking that we need that will inspire the change, and that it doesn't always have to be some big robust plan. It oftentimes is one person doing one action that somebody goes, oh, that's a cool idea, oh, that works, oh, how can we then scale that? And that's when it kind of is a way which, hey, this works, and then you can kind of move it forward. So I think it can come top down, but also most time it comes from bottom up.
Yeah, and what I hear you speaking into, Blake, and what's been a theme throughout the day, throughout the entire Digital Climate Summit, is about modeling behavior ultimately.
Mm.
And we heard Janine Garofalo carries her water bottle everywhere she goes, and certain plot lines feature characters that bring their own tote bags. I mean, those kind of small actions are modeling the behavior, and it kind of relates to what Lucy said. Is it's the organization's responsibility to set up the tool. Is there a platform for which you can put the donation items, but the behavior is being modeled by the people on the ground. So thank you for that. So Brett, I'm going to, same question, but I'm going to add in the talent piece, especially because one of our audience questions, sorry, I just saw the producer notes. There are a lot of notes to me, which is great. One of the audience questions is, who's responsible for educating artists and athletes, right? And teams and fans, but ultimately whose responsibility is that? So going back to, if there's anything else you have to add to the crew question, please add it in. But if you can take us to talent, how do we bring this messaging to talent, and what, especially those of us that are the practitioners, right? The people putting on the production or the live event, if you could take that away.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sports and athletes themselves, they're our heroes. And just for example, I mean, all of the, not, I wouldn't say all of them, but so many social justice movements over the years, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's sexuality, a significant progress has been made in the sports world for those topics. And the actual athletes themselves are the icons, but the crew and the organizations behind them, they're secret heroes in those movements. They accepted them. Jackie Robinson, for example, sure, he was an incredibly brave pioneer for racial justice in sports, but the Dodgers brought him on the team and welcomed him in. They had that leadership role to really switch into a new era of what is right. And really, even in this coronavirus age, the NBA, when the NBA shut down, that was really one of the first times our country really realized the significance of coronavirus and what it's about to do to our economy. And by doing so, they saved countless lives, I'm sure, for trying to reduce the rate of infection spread. MLB and its employees are participating in an antibody study. And so it's really, it's leadership and continuous leadership from the side of the crew. And it really trickles into the athletes on the field and vice versa. So there is a flow between them. And really, I know that I'm the sports guy here, but I do want to tell a quick story from a recent music festival in my previous job, just that Jack White was a headliner at with the Raconteurs. They were the reason why, as a consultant, we were brought onto the team. I know it because he had his list of needs, and his primary need was composting and recycling. And they're like, well, how are we going to do this? And so they brought us on, and that really shows the leadership potential from the athletes to affect the crew and affect the organizational operations and processes. So I think it really does go both ways. And in order to inspire both, you need to have a common vision and really top-down leadership, or grassroots conversations that can really rise up into the organization. I hope that is sufficient for that answer right now.
It's fantastic. I just have to acknowledge my panelists because they have so much to give, and we're giving them such a short window of time to jump in. So I really appreciate everyone diving in. I did really want to, so there are a couple little housekeeping things. One, as an audience member, I want you to start thinking about your inspired actions. This is your second panelist question, but ultimately we're about to dive into some specifics because I'm going to evoke specifics from my panelists because they all have them in there, but it's hard not to answer in the high level because we're covering such important topics. So we're about to dive into specifics. So as an audience member, if you can start thinking, what are inspired actions you can take to address sustainability in your life? And I say life because if you're a live event professional, what's a behavior you're willing to model, that you're willing to step forward and take, or what's an issue or an initiative that you want to champion? And so the hashtag we're asking you to use when you declare what action or inspired action you take is create a green culture. So however you want to say it, I pledge to do X to create a green culture. So we're going to be, we have 10 minutes left, panelists. So I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to make little faces to try to get you go a little fast, because I want you to also be able to have like one conclusion sentence in an ideal standpoint. But I do want to just also shout out some of the topics that the fans have said that are interesting. They're concerned about air travel of the touring world, right? So many people hear about the air travel of the crew and the bands, and you know, I've worked with U2 and Roger Waters and other big artists on their plans, and how are they going to reduce the carbon footprint of tour and air travel. There's concerns about food being thrown away. A lot of audience questions and comments are about food waste. So these are some of the specific topics that are people's minds and hearts about sustainability in the live event space. And we also have questions about basically, you know, what are easy actions? Like everyone wants that easy action that they can take. So that's a little context for some of the specific topics that the audience is raising. We also have some people, so of course we're a climate conference, right? So what I wanted to ask us, if we can do a round robin, you know, from the work that I do, I've always identified the environmental categories of which to address. And so I said that funky, but basically it's a framework. And at the end of the day, you know, you look at AG1 Earth, they do energy and climate, water, waste reduction, supply, environmental preferable procurement. They have their categories. The SDGs are a great framework. Effect Partners, we've created climate positive solutions in touring. We talk about leave no trace, climate solutions for the supply chain, single-use plastic free. So those are some specific tangible projects and focused environmental categories. I wanted to ask each of you if there's your top 2 or 3 environmental tactical things that you're focused on. Is it energy and climate, reducing fan travel? Is it getting shore power that's more energy efficient? So if I can have you guys kind of go around robin, thinking of your frameworks that you work on, what are the specific actionable environmental tactics that you've been taking or putting most of your time into recently? Okay, so Blake or Brett? I'm gonna let Lucy not go first on this one since I did that to her last time.
Yeah, I'm gonna default to you.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I would say the 3 main things, just to rattle them off quickly. First would be carbon reporting, climate action in terms of the data capture and the ability to turn that into meaningful data for the public. Number 2, I would say material circularity. We're actively engaged in that, in opportunities to create community impact projects by understanding our material flows a little better. And then
can you
finally,
offer further definition of material circularity?
Yeah, for material circularity, really understanding the 3 primary resource flows and opportunities to impact them. So from narrowing flows, which is trying to use less materials, from slowing flows, which is increasing the lifespans of our materials, and then closing flows, which would be the recycling and being able to bring those materials back into circulation in our economies. And I felt like I just gave a textbook definition, which was super boring, but hopefully you guys can follow the Green Sports Alliance as a shameless plug, and you can learn more there. And then finally, just last one would be the athlete engagement, and really trying to utilize and tap into their voices, understanding that there's significant power there. I know that's not an environmental tactic, but
it is.
But it is, yeah.
But it is.
So those would be my quick 3.
Awesome. And so just to be clear, athlete engagement is education, so they can be informed and empowered athletes. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And giving them the tools and platform to speak from. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Blake, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So the first one is network. You know, kind of building a network of other folks. You know, a lot of the things and shows that we do are so big, and it takes countless amounts of crews and vendors and partners to put on, that it's helpful now to identify who are the vendors who you want to be working with, who are themselves taking these actions. And for example, the Producers Guild has a green production guide that has a resource of vendors who are taking this. And I know that Effect Partners works with a bunch of other industry partners around. And so by working with who that network is, that will also help you move forward. It's not something that you yourself have to do alone in a vacuum. It's going to take all of us working together. The other one is, as a producer, you know, my job is to tell stories. And so what you know, you can do depending on your role is, you know, I look at where can I help others tell their story. So is there, you know, a conference like this or others going on where can get involved and help say, hey, look, I think what you're doing is great. How can we bring our knowledge to the table and, you know, up your game, or come up with different strategies and tactics that work for you to help spread and share the message and make it more effective. And so, you know, that's the lanes that we straddle on. But, you know, at the end of the day, every action creates an impact. And I think that, what I've been, most helpful with is when you connect the network to everything that's going on, you start to see different opportunities that you can make changes and different gaps that are needed. And what do you want that you don't have access to? And then you can go ahead and create that, and you can go ahead and start to share that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to move it over to Lucy for your top 3 initiatives. And then we're going to do a recap together.
If it's okay, I'm going to kind of blend the two, because I think we're very similar to what Brett said in terms of focused on climate action, on waste and single-use plastics. But what I'd love to kind of talk about is as a practitioner, because to me, sometimes the hardest part is taking these kind of big goals and ideas and figuring out how the heck to get them done. And so some things that have really helped me that as a practitioner and to future practitioners, and Blake, you kind of touched on this, one is you got to find your allies. So if you are the sustainability person, find your allies, find your advocates in different departments in your organization or in your production, and use them, right? If you're not a sustainability person, but you want to be, find the sustainability person. We always want you to come to us. We're always looking for allies. So find them. And every time someone comes, emails me at Live Nation and is like, maybe they're in ticketing or they're in merch and they're like, how do I get involved? It's like, the best part of my day. So find your allies, because you need people everywhere in your organization, right, to make change. Once you have those allies, as Blake said, collaborate. And that might mean that you got to kind of shut up for a second and hear what their ideas are. Remember that you don't have to be an expert in everything. Other people have a wealth of knowledge that they can use and apply to different sustainability practices. So you can learn a ton from other people. And then collaboration on the kind of the bigger scale is, what are the biggest levers you can pull? So what is the role and what are the biggest levers? And then how do those kind of all meet, right? So if you're a venue, what do you control? What levers can you pull? How does that then interact with what an artist, what their levers are, right? They've got the platform, they've got the influence. How can they do that? And then, fans and sponsors, everyone's kind of got a specialty. And the more we can collaborate and tap into what each role kind of brings to the table, I think we'll be able to make some of these changes faster. Sometimes I think we just don't talk to each other enough. And then the last key thing for me is you got to make it practical. And I know that feels kind of boring, especially, I struggle every day with, again, like I said, wanting to do everything and thinking big. And you need that for your inspiration, but always make sure, especially when you're talking to your production managers and your operations people, like it's practical for them, right? So make sure that you can really kind of lay out a plan that gets you from point A to point B, and people can see that vision and what's required to get to that point. So I hope that's okay, Jen, that I decided to do it that way, but yeah.
Sure. Well, actually, you did a beautiful little thing. So I'm going to challenge both you and Blake really quickly. From your experience addressing climate change or talking with clients about climate change, what are the specific, yes, got it. What are the specific, producers are talking to me, what are the specific environmental actions that you think are most impactful to be taking right now? Should we, like Brett told us, measuring climate change, working on our supply chain? If you were to give me something super specific, like absolutely it's zero waste or absolutely it's energy efficiency, what would you say? I'm putting you on the hot spot.
Carbon neutral.
Carbon neutral. Awesome. Okay. Carbon neutral productions. Lucy, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's got to be about climate impact.
Climate impact.
Reduce emissions.
Amazing. Well, Blake and Lucy, you kind of gave us a really beautiful summary kind of answer. That was kind of a really great place to land. But Brett, you gave me a specific answer. So I'm going to give you the floor last as we wrap up and say, kind of hearing how Blake and Lucy tied it together and gave wisdom and advice to our audience of how to approach it. What would be your final wisdom to our audience?
Yeah, that's very generous to give me the floor at the end. But our generation's the future. The more entertainment professionals that understand the urgency of the situation, the more people we can reach with this platform. And it's a powerful platform. We need to cut global emissions 7.6% per year this entire decade. And we're going to bounce back from COVID. We're going to start traveling again. And we need to start telling the story in a much more urgent manner, but doing so in a way that inspires. So I know we're just about out of time here, so I'll finish it there.
Amazing. Okay, so we are in our last minute. So I don't know when we're going to get cut off, but I'm going to take us to the end here because that's how I'm going to roll. So we've got inspired actions flowing in from the audience. They're coming in. People are declaring to take public transit. They're declaring to look at how they tell their story and bring more sustainability into their storytelling. They're talking about only choosing eco-friendly venues and eco-friendly sponsors. We had incredible panelists who gave it their all, really rolled with me in the tumble of up and down energy everywhere with me. So thank you for that. Up and down more technology, not the energy. Our energy was kind of up the whole time. We were pretty incredible. Thank you for that. With that said, we have, for those of the audience, the next session is going to be a live climate cella with artists like AGR and others starting right here at 5:15. And here we are. Last comments. I want to give you guys the final floor other than my thank you. One last sentence from each of you, and then we'll close out and say goodnight. So we'll go Brett first, Blake, and then Lucy.
What was that, Jen? Sorry, it cut out for
just
1 second.
one last sentence, just a goodbye to our audience and a thank you.
No,
Yep.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. And yeah, good luck and stay strong on this fight in COVID and beyond for our planet.
Thank you, Blake.
Definitely. I mean, I think that by everyone showing up here, it's a step in the right direction. And I think that we're all open to any ideas. Anyone wants to reach out, we're happy to help, happy to connect, and happy to move this forward as we all evolve together.
And Lucy.
I'm going to get super hokey. I love the quote. We don't need one person doing everything. We need 1 million people doing one thing. So just remember, you don't have to take it all on. We need a lot of people doing a lot of little things. So thanks.
One step at a time. Thank you, each of you, for being a lot of people doing one thing and not many things great. So thank you for that. Thank you all. Thank you to our hosts, and look forward to continuing to collaborate together.
Hey, Zena here. It's so great to hear all of the wonderful information about sustainable production. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon, and I wanted to tell you about an industry initiative called the Creative Industries PACT for Sustainable Action. This is a global initiative created by multi-stakeholders. A lot of different folks chimed in on the development of the PACT. It took 10 months to develop, and it references past industry initiatives that have taken place and also international initiatives like the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, to make a really robust framework, common set of goals for any organization in the creative industries to sign on to endorse. It's a voluntary pledge. It's a common set of goals that span anything from creating a strategy. Any organization can create a strategy to work towards sustainable practices, no matter what part of the organization, what type of organization in and around the creative industries. So any organization can do that. Another one is educating the workforce. That's going to look different depending on your organization. It's going to look different depending on where you are in the world, what resources you have, all of that. So these broad goals in the PACT are meant to take advantage of local context. And it's a real opportunity for us to learn from each other because it's a global initiative and because different organizations are going to implement these in different ways. We're going to get nuggets of insight from organizations from around the world that will inspire and help us, no matter what organization, move forward collectively in the creative industries. The creative industries inherently are creative. So there's a lot of opportunity to get creative on how you implement each of the goals in the PACT and how you talk about it. One of the key tenets of the PACT, communicate what you're doing. That's really key because if we talk about our journey, it will inspire others. Other folks will get on board, see what we're doing, sign the PACT, and take some of the ideas and really start working toward them together. And, another goal in the PACT is reducing consumption of fuel and materials so that, we have a lighter impact on the environment. That's really, really key. What are you able to reduce? How are you able to reduce it? Let your industry know and really start working toward that. Keep track yourself. And that way you can continue to improve over time. So those are a couple of examples of goals that are in the PACT. But the key point here is all industry organizations who have signed the PACT are working on something collectively together. Right now, we have 85 signatories from 13 countries around the world. That's amazing. This PACT launched in December of 2019 in conjunction with the COP25 meeting in Spain. And now we've got 85 organizations, every organization from film commissions, membership-based organizations, unions, production companies, companies in and around the film, TV, advertising, creative industry. So think about where your organization falls in that. And my call to action to you is go to the PACT website, creativeindustriespact.com. Go to the website, read the goals, think about how they apply to your slice of the industry, and sign on. Use it as a framework and work toward these goals together with many other organizations. And then lastly, talk about it. That is a very key part. Talk about it. Work to implement and then talk about it. We get inspired when we hear stories from others. And that's a key part of the PACT, is sharing your story, talking about what you're doing. So that's my call to action. Go to the website, read the goals, sign the PACT, and take action. Thanks for having me.
Every time you take water or use water, it comes from somewhere. And that somewhere it comes from, you're taking the life and the color, you're sucking those things out of a different area.
A lot of them are just not informed about where their water comes from.
Sometimes I feel like it's a trend to support Indigenous people.
The people of Los Angeles hold a key role in this struggle because they're the ones with the say. We live around how to preserve and take care of that water.
LA says they have a moral obligation to the Indigenous people here in the Owens Valley, but yet they haven't upheld that.
And from then on, life as we knew it changed completely. With the Spanish forcing their ways on us, you were either going to be beaten or murdered. It wasn't a choice for us. Either you sign this paper or you die. In that fear of wanting to survive, it made them choose the religion, it made them choose the language, it made them choose a name from the Bible just to stay alive.
Then it changed entirely when LA came on.
They knew that they needed more water for LA to get bigger.
The city of LA drained that lake in under a decade.
And that's where they got the idea of building LA Aqueduct.
Everything you do depends on that water.
What is going to happen if all of a sudden water is no longer able to come from all these other sources? That by the time LA residents recognize that there's an issue, it's a catastrophe.
Hi, my name's Emma Rose Cohen, and my preferred gender pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the CEO and founder of Final. Final is on a mission to reduce single-use plastic waste by creating badass tools to reduce your single-use plastic. So we're working on an entire line of foreverables, which are items that are designed to replace single-use plastic and last forever. We believe that waste is just a design flaw. And so by creating these innovative products, we're encouraging people to live more sustainably by making sustainability convenient and sexy and fun and badass. So I got into sustainability in college. My girlfriends and I would dress up like mermaids and do beach cleanups. And it was just like so obvious that people want to have fun while doing the right thing. So by dressing up and, playing good music, everyone on the beach got involved, and it was just so fun and super rewarding. So from there, we actually turned Save the Mermaids into a 501c3 nonprofit and did after-school education and beach cleanups. And that's really where I found my passion for sustainability. From there, I started working at Los Alamos National Laboratory in waste minimization. And unfortunately, federal work does not suit a mermaid. So after 4 years there, I went off on a venture to create this company. I feel it's important to be part of Summit because the problems around the climate are not going to be solved with one company. We need a ton of companies out there working towards the same solution, working together to solve these problems, and that's really how we're going to end up solving it. I hope that the action items from Summit are, first off, increased awareness, that people really come from it with a deeper understanding of what the problems are and how we can solve them. I believe that there's really two ways to solve the climate crisis. First off, we need bottom-up organization and grassroots activism. So, using your voice, speaking up for what you believe in. And then secondly, we need top-down. So we really need policy and legislation in place that holds companies accountable for the waste that they're producing and the damage that they're creating to the environment. My manifesto for people watching is rethink, reduce, reuse. Those are the 3 steps that we really should be considering instead of looking at recycling as an alternative for waste management. And the first part, rethink, is really about designing better things. How do we eliminate waste from a design and create something that can live in perpetuity and work with the circular economy and end up having a lower net impact? We can create a green new world by using our voice. I absolutely did not understand the power of my voice until starting this company. I used to go around with friends and people who didn't know me and talk about single-use plastic and get some weird looks and some people who understood. But by creating this company, we really found a community of people that are motivated to make the changes necessary to create a more sustainable world. So don't underestimate the power of your voice, the power of your social media platform to make change, to inspire, one person or maybe thousands of people to make a difference in their daily life.
Graphics powered by Hovercast.
Streaming powered by Wirecast.